Welcome everyone to Gems from the Wisdom Traditions, a conversation circle that we sponsor here at Still and Living Center every Saturday afternoon. And we're just so pleased to have all of you join us for today's topic, which always comes from the Still and Living Center Almanac. And for this week, our topic is sleep and dreams. And we're going to take it up from various psychological traditions. I think psychology has to do with this big question, who am I? Who am I? And when we get into these topics of sleep and dream, that becomes a really, really relevant question. Especially because when we think about it, maybe at like up to a third of our lives that we spend asleep. And we come out of that sleep and we might not remember anything at all about it, or we might remember some fleeting images of dreams, or maybe we remember something extremely impactful. And most of the time, we just don't even know where it comes from, or actually who's even having these dreams, or who's going through that sleep state. And so that's a huge question, I think, that we can undertake through various schools of psychology. And I want to start out by mentioning that we go back to ancient Hindu psychology, which is some of the earliest that we're aware of. We find them talking about the soul through successively different states of consciousness regularly, all the time. The soul goes through Jagrat, that's the waking state. It gets really overwhelmed by the bombardment of everything that goes on in the physical world. So it needs to retreat from the physical world. It goes through another state, which is called Svapna, which is the dream state. And it also goes through Sushupti, which is the deep dreamless sleep, according to Hindu philosophy. And these correspond very much, really, to what modern science is telling us about what happens when we go to sleep. Very close parallel to what was being talked about thousands of years ago. All of us have some experience, I suppose, of recalling dreams. And yet, who is having those dreams? I think it's a really important question for us to just consider all the way through today's conversation. When I wanted to look into a question like that, my go-to is somebody who looks at things deeply from so many different angles. She looks at it from the ancient Kabbalah, which would be the esoteric Jewish text. She looks at it from the Vedic Puranas. She'll look at it from the science of her times back in the 1800s. She'll look at it from the standpoint of what were the Greeks saying when they talked about the psyche, the psyche, which is the root word for psychology. And she says this: the nature and function of real dreams cannot be understood unless we admit the existence of an immortal ego in mortal man, independent of the physical body. So she's saying that there's always something invisible, immortal that is there to experience our waking life, but also these dream states and even these dreamless states. I want to look at a quote from Carl Jung, and we will have a chance to study a little bit of what he has to say. Dale Flowers is listening in, and he is somebody who's actually studied Carl Jung quite a lot. And so I'm very grateful that he's able to tune in with us today. And I have studied him very little. I just have a huge respect for the depth and the symbolic nature that he finds in dreams that can really inform us. Jung says, it is only in modern times that the dream, this fleeting and insignificant looking product of the psyche, has met with such profound contempt. Formerly, it was esteemed as a harbinger of fate and a comforter, a messenger of the gods. And indeed, when we look back in the older traditions, we find many instances where dreams are really taken from a very profound approach. For example, we have Pharaoh's dream, and that was interpreted for the Egyptian Pharaoh in Genesis chapter 41. And Pharaoh evidently dreamed of 7 healthy cows on the bank of the Nile, but then there were 7 extremely sickly cows that ate all of the 7 healthy ones and yet regained no health themselves. And then he had the second dream, and this was of 7 very lush, healthy ears of grain that grew from one source. And then here came 7 sickly ears of grain that consumed those healthy ones. And it was a dream evidently that Pharaoh kept having night after night, and he asked his wise men, and none of them were able to interpret it for him until Joseph did so. And Joseph explained to him that this was representing the 7 years of abundance and plenty that was about to come to Egypt, which would then be followed by 7 years of terrible drought and devastation to the land and the crops, the like of which was not within memory. Pharaoh asked him, "Is there anything that I can do about this?" And Joseph said that he could keep 1/5 of every year's crop of seed during the years of plenty, the 7 years of plenty, put those aside and save those for the years of abundance. And so by the interpretation of this dream, Pharaoh's people were saved, even after the 7 terrible years of the drought. So in ancient times, the dreams have been seen as being very important and potentially symbolic and able to give us important information. Within our personal lives, it's evidently dreams can come from a lot of different places, according to people who have studied them. And certain kinds of dreams evidently are not a lot different from the kinds of dreams that an animal would have. We can watch different animals and see their eyes moving and their bodies twitching in similar ways to what we do. And so there are dreams that just happen as kind of automatic responses to agitations and jolts and things that have happened during our day. And they can come from very agitated states of mind. And that is one kind of dream. That is the kind of dream, if we look at Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, wonderful, wonderful piece of literature, by the way, so insightful. And Scrooge, who's the most miserly person one has ever heard of, doesn't believe in Christmas at all, goes to sleep on Christmas Eve, and is visited by 3 ghosts in his dreams. And when the first one comes, and he begins talking to Scrooge, the ghost observes, you don't believe in me. And Scrooge says, oh, you may be an undigested bit of beef, a blot of mustard, a crumb of cheese, a fragment of underdone potato. There's more of gravy than the grave in you. He wasn't given to making many jokes, but he did in that case because he was really scared of this ghost. Well, he eventually wakes up from this long series of visits by the ghosts of Christmas past, the ghosts of Christmas present, and the ghosts of Christmas future. And it has just an absolutely transformative effect on this miser. You can see the course of his life as a result of these visitors showing him pictures of himself in the past, the present, and the future, and the people around him. And he wakes up and he calls out the window to the little messenger boy, telling him to go buy the fattest Christmas goose and bring it to the house of his employee. And he's just a changed man, and he always celebrates Christmas in his heart from ever after as a result of that dream. And we're told in the Jewish Talmud that a dream that is not interpreted is like a letter that is not read. Can you imagine getting some really fat, wonderful looking letter in an envelope and just throwing it away? Not knowing what's on the inside. I guess that's what an unexamined dream is like. In more modern times, we had a psychologist who decided that dreams can primarily be understood as things that have arisen largely out of repressed sexuality. And that was Sigmund Freud. It was a very kind of restricted way of looking at a topic that really has so much richness. It no doubt had its truths and still does. Yet when we had Jung appear on the scene, there was such a vaster expanse of possibility in terms of us being open, able to open dreams to a more significant reading of them. A Jungian psychologist named Marie Louise von Franz says, occasionally one has a dream that is so remote from one's life, so numinous, which she says it was Jung's favorite word for an intensely moving experience. Numinous, like surrounded by a cloud of light. So one occasionally has a dream so numinous and so strange and uncanny that it does not seem to belong to the dreamer. It is like a visitation from another world, which in truth it is. The other world being the subterranean one of the unconscious. In ancient times, and even today among some people, such dreams are regarded as messages from the gods or from ancestral figures. These dreams are called big dreams, according to Jung. And so we have dreams that evidently could arise out of us just having an upset tummy. We have dreams that could portend the future of an entire nation. We have dreams that could transform the way that we live our lives. We have this whole range of of kinds of dreams that can come to us. And evidently, it's really according to how we have cultivated ourselves that we will either, first of all, remember our dreams, or if we do remember them, that we'll have some way of remembering them clearly. Evidently, it's very easy in our psyches as we are waking up from sleep to actually reverse things that come to us in dreams. So they actually get turned around the opposite. So can we remember them at all? Can we remember them clearly? Can we remember them in the right order, so to speak? Or and can we look at them from a symbolic perspective that allows us to make some sort of sense of them for ourselves or for a larger whole? Jung evidently analyzed about 80,000 dreams over his lifetime. And he would let a dream sit with him. And I suppose that he did this not just with his own dreams, but as a psychiatrist who is hearing his clients' dreams, I am imagining that it meant that he was letting these dreams that he's heard from his clients sit with him. And he would really brood on these dreams and see what he could tease out of them, and how these different dreams seem to fall in different patterns. And as a result of doing this, he could see that dreams seem to have like a dream of a river. And remember, there was a river in the Pharaoh's dream that the cows were on one side of. A river seemed to indicate something rather momentous life change that one was going to pass over. Could be an ocean. The ocean represented the vast unconscious, and that unconscious evidently holds great dangers, and also, as the ocean does, great resources and treasures. All of these different things in nature that he looked at, the pine tree with its rings on it, the moon and its connection with the feminine, and the more irrational and yet intuitive. All of these symbols he had a way of using to help people unpack their dreams, to see what those might mean in their lives. And he took dreams very seriously. There was someone who was a mountain climber who told him of a dream of ascending to the top of a mountain and taking a step into the air, and he woke up from that dream. Jung told him to take this dream very seriously, and please to consider stopping his mountain climbing or doing something to change the course of what he was heading into. And within a few months, his client did not heed his advice, and he did, in fact, ascend a mountain, take a step off. Somebody saw him fall off the mountain and kill himself and the person below him in the process. So Jung saw the potential for dreams to be very connected with a deeper reality that we have. And so when we're talking about who is it that dreams, it's possible to think, and I'd like to read another quote from Helena Blavatsky before I open it to our general conversation. To think of the ego as living its own separate life within the prison of clay, that's this body. whenever it becomes free from the trammels of matter, such as during the sleep of the physical man, this ego, which is the real man, the higher self, the true self, then is living its true life. So that's an interesting perspective to take. And it kind of reminds me of another one of our quotes from Chuang Tzu, which I don't take literally, but I think it's very evocative. I dreamt I was a butterfly fluttering hither and thither. Now I do not know whether I was then a man dreaming I was a butterfly, or whether I am now a butterfly dreaming I am a man. So let me open it now for any comments, questions that people have to make. And this is definitely a roundtable conversation. Yeah, Carolyn, I want you to turn on your mic, please.
Do we have any evidence that two different people can have the same dream? And that might, and what explanation there would be for that? I'm just curious, because another way of putting the question, can there be a brotherly or sisterly interaction between two people? And I guess the question would be, is that when they're both asleep, or when one's asleep and one's awake, or what? Because we tend to think that dreams are kind of very isolated individual experiences. And no matter how hard you try, you can't really effectively tell somebody about your dream. So anyway, I'm just wondering if dreams are a less visible way of communication between two souls.
Interesting. And I mean, given Jung's concept of the collective unconscious or unconsciousness, yeah, could it be shared by many souls, not just two?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right. Robert, I saw your hand raised before Carolyn asked her question. Should we converse on this question before we take up your question or comment?
Oh, yeah. Answer Carolyn's question.
Okay. Who has thoughts on this question?
I actually just wanted to ask the same thing, because it's super interesting that 2 nights ago, Kai and I woke up and I said, I have this nightmare. And he's like, and I told him about it. And he's like, I have the exact same nightmare. And I was like, what? And it's been happening very often for the past month that we have, it seems like we have the exact same dream. Like we describe it. We were doing, and I was doing this, and I was in this place, and I was with this person. And it seems, for what we're telling each other, that we're dreaming the exact same thing. So super interesting that Carolyn asked that, because it's something that was in my mind as well. This never happened with anybody else. So I find it very fascinating.
Well,
and especially happens like two days ago on the week of sleep and dreams, which is even more like, what?
Then the answer is a definite yes. I guess maybe the next question is, well, how could that happen?
Yeah, how is that possible? I think it's just want to make a comment, like we've been living very similar life. We like watch the same things, like maybe reading the same books, like our dates are very much like in sync. So I do hear like we also dream based on what we experience throughout the day, like our emotions, what we see, something that, you know, stood with us that we may not consciously gave it our attention, but it's in the back of our mind. So my theory is that since we're living social like intertwined linear life together in a way, just sharing so much in common, maybe some of those things, you know, I don't know, come together when we're asleep.
Hey, thank you. And Diana, as a therapist, you might want to weigh in, or just your personal self. I don't know.
I think, Renee, you hit it. I think that the truth is, for me, dreams come from the collective unconscious or from our subconscious, or, you know, so there's people that can have dreams that are the same that I've talked to that don't live together, you know? And I think that those are, you know, it's like kind of like the 100th monkey sometimes. Someone has a dream over here and someone has a dream over there. So I think that who is dreaming? Are we being dreamed? I mean, is oneness dreaming us and we're just living this life in a body? You know, so it's like if we're really all one, then we actually can have the same dreams because we're all connected and there is no separation. So I really believe that they come from the unconscious or collective unconscious or that kind of place. And so, yes, I think that we can have the same dreams. And I think they can be very powerful. And some people really remember. I don't remember my dreams. I've really worked with that a lot. I don't, and I'm okay with that. But it's like some people do remember and they have a lot of insights that come through them. So, but I do believe we're all one. And so it makes sense to me that we would have similar dreams even in different parts of the world.
Huh, thank you. David, is your hand up for this particular line of thought?
Yes, it is. Sort of. So I'm with Diana, except I have a very, very active dream life. I don't spend a lot of time analyzing them, just like I have a lot of books I haven't written. So there you go. And letters, but letters I read. However, as Diana spoke about this, I started thinking about how, you know, sometimes our focus or our locus is in our body, you know, indigestion or a body ache, or we're just feeling particularly good. So our locus is there. Sometimes we're very emotional. So we're at that level of ourself, right? The emotional self. And sometimes we're full of thoughts. And so then there's these other layers of ourselves. And ultimately, I think where Diana was speaking to is that at the highest level, there is just the one. And so I think that maybe our dreams can also have a locus in those various layers of being, so that sometimes, as Lewis Carroll was saying, you know, some of the dreams are related to our digestive tract. Sometimes it's in our emotional being or our mental being. We dream about things that we're concerned over, for example. And so perhaps sometimes we are dreaming at that very highest level where we are all connected. So it's just really a matter of the being and its focal point. It was kind of where I dreamed this dream I just had with you.
Thank you. Any other thoughts along these lines for Colin Robert?
Well, I have some reflections on this.
Great.
Because certain dreams seem to be like lots of people have them. And I think they're like anxiety dreams. So, you know, like if you apply it to school, be like a dream where, you know, you forgot you had a test, or you forgot to study, or you can't find your classroom and to take the test, you know, all kinds of things, that obstacles that get in the way of the accomplishment of what you need to do. Or it could be at work, the same thing. You just can't make any headway. There's all these obstacles that come up where you can't accomplish what you need to do. And I've talked to other people, and there's lots of people that have dreams like that. I take it they're kind of like anxiety dreams. So I just wonder, you know, certain emotional states may take on certain patterns.
Yeah, that seems to be the case, that then they just play out in our dreams, and those kinds of dreams seem to be pretty easy to track what aspect of ourselves is kind of reenacting itself in our dream state.
But they're very exhausting.
Very exhausting. Yeah. Those kind of frustration dreams, or those terrors of falling, or, all those kinds of things. They are exhausting for sure. And yet, what about those more uplifting dreams? I mean, what about those dreams when we can fly, or those dreams when we meet dragons, or I had a recurring dream as a kid of hiking up and up and up and up a great mountain. And when I got to the top, I was so startled to see this circle of, they were like these upright standing birds. And they were just very noble. And they were obviously like meeting in council. And I was so startled to see such a magnificent sight that I just rolled down the hill, and like a snowball, I picked up snow as I rolled down. And I kept having that dream, and I think it was only somehow in adulthood and becoming acquainted with the idea of masters of wisdom that dream began to make any sense to me. I always held it, in high regard, but I have no clue what that was about. It didn't have anything to do with what was going on in school, or with my family, or my friends, or anything. It was separate from that. And that to me felt like one of those dreams that interior self, that soul of mine had that was somehow significant at a soul level.
So can I ask my question?
Yes, please.
Well, many people have heard about Julius Caesar's wife dream. I can't remember what it was. I think it was blood on a statue or something, a bleeding statue. And she told her husband about it and told him not to go out that day. He didn't have to. But he ignored her, and he got out, he ended up being stabbed to death. So the question is, like, say you get a feeling you shouldn't get on this plane. Well, is that just fear of flying? Or, if you have a dream, you shouldn't get on this plane. Is that a fear, or how do you tell whether it's real?
Great question. Yeah, I think his wife was Portia, and the day was the Ides of March, right?
Exactly. But it's not so much that particular dream, but you
Right.
could have warning dreams like the guy, he ignored stepping off into midair. And a lot of people, actually there's more examples of that, where people did not heed the warning they got. So the question is, if you got them, how do you tell whether they're real?
I love the question. Who's got a thought?
Well, I think if you recognize that your dreams, like your thoughts during the day, are happening in a field of karma. So the cause and effects, or the possible cause and effect already exist. So that's why you should take your dreams seriously, because they're just one way in which they're already programmed into the astral field, so to speak. So that's why you should take them seriously, and to make sure that you're kind of on guard for its manifestation. And if you have particularly some attitude of pride, or I'm invulnerable, or that's just a silly dream, well, then what you're doing is you're ignoring the karmic cause and effect. And there might be multiple possibilities recorded in karma. And you just kind of pick one that you think is pleasant enough, etc. So you have to recognize that you live in a sense, in an already programmed universe. And respect that, and thus be at least more cautious, or take a friend with you or something like that. So I'd say take dreams seriously, because they already exist as a chain of cause and effect. And you don't always, sometimes you do pick a wiser course. So you stay outside of that chain of cause and effect. But if you thump your chest and say, oh no, it's just a dream, or I can handle that, you're in a very presumptuous way, then you're susceptible to making that chain of karma manifest and affect your
Yeah.
experience.
Thank you, Carolyn. Cliff, what's your thought on this?
Well, I'm certainly enjoying this conversation. I've never really stopped in my life too much to think about dreams, but just this conversation has got me really thinking how mysterious dreams are, super mysterious. But so the mind, they all kind of happen in the mind. And so we have the mind in our waking life is doing one thing, but then ultimately, as you described in ancient India, they talked about Svapna, which is the dream state, but then Sushupti, which is the dreamless state, which I think maybe Diana is saying that in Sushupti, we are touching our oneness. You know, we don't remember it, but so the mind is moving from involvement in the world in our waking state to passing through dream states into this, what Emerson would call the oversoul, or the one consciousness, and then back. So we have this vertical ascent and descent going on in a 24-hour period. And what's going on with all that, and like David's saying, there's all these different kinds of dreams that might be at different parts of our emotional nature and so forth. But for me, I mentioned this to you the other day, Renee, when we woke up, that I have all these dreams where I'm trying to figure stuff out. I'm getting into these conundrums, and and Robert's saying, like, oh my God, I forgot my homework, or something like that. But those kind of dreams, like, how do I fix this thing? Because I'm always involved in the world, dealing with problems and fixing things and stuff like that. And even the Pharaoh, his dream was kind of it was a prophetic dream about his dharma. His duty is to take care of his people. So he was having a dream about that. And even Scrooge, it seems like he was trying to untangle a knot of karma in his dream so that he could actually do his dharma. And so I'm kind of wondering if a lot of dreams are, like Carolyn's saying, having to do with maybe untangling a Gordian knot of karma so that we can do our dharma, or likewise having something to do with figuring out what our purpose is, what our dharma is. And each of us, with all the different aspects, we all are unique that way. We all have different dharmas. I think a lot of scientists come up with their solutions to their problems that they're trying to figure out. I think Einstein did. in his dream states. So there's something going on there where there's an untangling or a epiphany kind of coming together in that period, and also warnings too. And there again, there's also this other mysterious part about dreams where time no longer exists in the past, present, and future. We're actually can project into the future and see the future and avoid something, like Robert's saying, like getting on a plane or climbing a particular mountain. So there's something in the dream state that transcends time, kind of like what David said in past ones about flow states, transcending time. So it's a completely mysterious subject, and I'm really enjoying the conversation.
Other
Yeah.
thoughts,
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, so I think along the lines of what Cliff was saying, if you look at more recent neuroscience research on sleep states, there are processes that happen in the different parts of the brain during different types of sleep. If you're deprived of certain parts of your sleep cycle, one of the things that can not happen is that all the concerns from the day, which during a normal sleep cycle will be sent from short-term memory into long-term memory, so that you clear that buffer, so that when you wake up in the morning, you can deal with new things happening. And if that doesn't happen, then you're clouded, you're already over full. So you wake up in an anxious state because you don't have the capacity to take in new information. So I think that this idea that same above as below, that I would say that the research is backing up what you're saying. And Jung spoke a lot about this as some of our dreams are compensatory. So if we're like overly thoughtful, we may have dreams about emotional areas. But in Jung's perspective, it was all about the growth of the soul. And so the various kinds of dreams have to do with what we need. Now, I did attend a lot of Stephen LaBarge's lectures when I was living on the Big Island, and he's the author of Lucid Dreaming and, well, many books on lucid dreaming. And one of the things that he talked about was how to cultivate awareness of your dreams. So in reflecting on what Diana said, is you do things before you go to sleep to prompt yourself. And we know that if you wake up and keep yourself up from 4 a.m. to 4:30 and then go back to sleep, you're likely to have much deeper, richer dreams. Also, before you go to sleep, you write and contemplate what it is that you're considering bringing into your dream, and that you have the ability on your bedside, and you're aware that you have the ability on your bedside to record anything when you wake up. And in fact, he had a sheet where you could simply check off the level of color. Was there sound in it? What was the predominant images? Were they old? Were they new? Just a sort of a cheat sheet that you could go on and check. And so by consciously setting the stage for your sleep cycle, when you wake up, you're more likely to have that dream recall, because we all dream a lot during the night. But as Diana said, some people simply don't remember them or remember that they were dreaming. So there are ways of influencing that through a variety of techniques. I don't know if I answered a question or I'm just rambling.
I also think that sometimes I say the dreams work with our subconscious. And sometimes if we have a problem, it gets settled in the dream. My experience is, may my problems be settled in the dream so I don't have to deal with them on earth. You know, it's like there is things that I do remember some of my dreams, but most of them I've done all those things. And you know, some people have short-term memory. Mine is longer. I forget. But I think there is something about the dream state that helps us work through issues that we haven't worked on. And that when you talk about karma, Carolyn, it's like there are things that we work on. And I said, if we can work on them during the dream state, and especially if you're fixing things all day, Cliff, you may not have time to just sit and ruminate. I mean, if you take time to do the thinking during the day and have space to do it, you may not do it so much at night. You know, it's like, I think that the mind works that way for us works on our subconscious, or the things that we're working on that we don't have time, or that if we have been working on something and we don't know what to do, our dreams will help work with that. And so my request is that I remember the dreams that are helpful to me and that I need to remember, and those that are just working stuff out. Thank you very much.
I wonder whether other people have experiences from childhood that have informed you in regard to sleeping or dreaming. Okay, so I told you about that very, very early childhood memory that I had that was very significant. I also had the experience in childhood of realizing that when I had a problem that I couldn't solve, like let's say it was something going on with a friend at school and I just didn't know how to deal with it. I remember telling myself, you know what? I bet you're going to know how to solve that if you just go to sleep now. I bet you'll know in the morning. And almost invariably, that's what would happen. I would wake up and, oh, okay. And I would be, ready. I would have some sort of approach that I felt as if had come to me as a gift from my sleeping state. And it makes sense if the real human being, if the real us is most active and able to be in its element as a spiritual being, as a soul, or whatever it is, if that's true, then of course a little visit to my real self, even if I can't remember anything about it, is going to do something for me when I wake up. So yeah, I guess that's a question I have. Do any of you have other experiences, maybe from childhood or from another part of your life, that in regard to sleeping or in regard to dreaming, that have informed you, or maybe an important dream that you had? I do see that Sarah Hodges is with us, and I know she does a lot of dreaming and she remembers a lot of her dreams. So I'm not sure whether she's in a position to share with us, but Sarah, the mic's open to you if you're able to respond. She's not in a space where she can have audio. Got it. All right, David.
Yeah. So my father, who I think considered himself to be atheist, actually taught me my first notions of meditation. He worked out these very complicated using trigonometry and things that he taught himself, but very precision work that he'd have to work out. And so he'd get these blueprints for something that he needed to engineer, and so he would study them. He'd go home for lunch, and he said, well, after eating, he would lay down for 20 minutes, lay on his back, and he didn't call it meditation, but he would just go quiet. And when he came back, the answer was there for him. And so I've used that regularly. And I think what I heard was, it may have been Einstein who would, with a particular challenge, would then take a glass of water, and he would say, at the bottom of this glass of water is the answer to my problem. And then he would drink the water, which of course is, distracting the mind, because it's this very physical, it's very non-ego, right? It's all, and Jung talks about that a lot, about dreams are a time when the ego can relax a bit and let that greater wisdom present itself to us. So I think the drinking water thing might also be another technique for just quieting the mind long enough that that higher part of ourselves that already knows can creep through the part of us that thinks we know.
I have another question for you. As an adult, and I don't know whether this happened to me as a child, but as an adult, I've had so many times where I've had these dreams and something got laid out before me, I don't know, it was a formula or a poem or a song or something that was wonderful. And I keep having like this impulse. How do I do a screenshot? How do I record this? I know I want to bring this back into my waking life, and it's so hard to do that. And I don't know how to do it. And I wake up and I have the memory of there was something really important there, and I missed it. I didn't know how to do the screenshot. I didn't know how to remember it well enough to bring it through. Any thoughts?
I've noticed for myself, oh, I'm sorry, Cliff, go ahead. I just want to say, I noticed for myself, I will often wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and I've got, if I'm supposed to write a paper or I'm supposed to do something, or I don't know what to say to somebody, I'll go at 3 o'clock in the morning, I sit at my computer and I just type it up. So that when I have those insights, I'll get up and I don't want to keep, because I keep thinking about them to see if I can remember them, to make sure I remember. I'll just get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and type it up. And even with my kids, if I've got something I want to say and I don't know what to say, I'll get up and I'll type a letter. Now that doesn't mean in the morning I'll read it and make changes, but that's how I do it. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning and go to my computer and type it up, so then it doesn't have to keep going over in my head. And it sounds much better at 3 o'clock in the morning than it does when I try to figure it out by myself.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes, well, I would have the same idea as the previous speaker, write it down. But I've had dreams that were extraordinary. Like I had a dream once that the secret doctrine was open to page 200 and I was being instructed somewhere, I don't know where. And I tried to bring back some of the instruction I received, but I didn't bring it all back, I know. And I also realized that whatever insights we have go through the astral, and that's reverse. But I think I got something out of that dream and other dreams that I've had. So I find that recording it and writing it down, either typewriting it or simply a notebook by the bed, handwritten, can be very helpful. And some of my best ideas have occurred to me like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. So I'm sure some of us have had similar experiences. Yeah, thank you.
I also want to say, because Sarah, you sent a message, and she was talking about lucid dreams, and since I was little, I always have lucid dreams. Like I can just be aware that I'm dreaming and just make decisions. Oh, I'm gonna jump from this huge cliff because nothing is gonna happen. Like I'm just dreaming. And I just find that so fascinating, the fact that every time I dream, which is almost every night, I wake up and I'm like, I was totally aware of everything. I could just make this decision knowing that this is just a dream. Like I'm just in a dream, but I still get to make decisions and go through all this path. So I just find that so fascinating. Does anybody have like any insight in lucid dreams? Because it's something I've been experiencing basically for like 26 years. And I don't understand it, but I think it's very fascinating. David, I think you mentioned something about it earlier too, but yeah, this like Sarah called it intersect of the consciousness and the unconscious mind. What is that? How can I be that? Or like anybody that has this dream, like why is that? Why is it so like intertwined?
I can mention some of the things that Helena Blavatsky says, which is that to the extent that we give our attention very much to the physical realm and all our problems and nitty-gritties of that, we're going to have a tendency to keep our dreaming at that level. And we're not going to have the same, well, she talks about it like this, like we have these vestures that we live in, and those include our mental vestures. So according to how we use our vestures, not just the physical vesture, like if we just let ourselves get physically flabby, we can't do the kind of workouts we want to do. Same thing with the mind. If we're not using the mind in ways that make it actually accessible for these higher dreams to land and to be able to be interpreted, then we don't have the same access to these valuable resources. So as we do the kinds of things that help to elevate our consciousness, I know you, to use something that's really important is love. And to concentrate on something like that, and not just personal love, but this kind of greater love for all of humanity, that will have make a difference in the very substance of our minds and the brains that we live in, depending on how we use our brains. This is what neuroplasticity says. Depending on how we use our brains have different capacities. Same thing with the mind that uses the brain. So evidently, how we use our minds is going to make these lucid dreams more accessible to us, and then also more clear as to their meaning, I think. I'm just sharing what I've read. Margaret, I'm glad you're joining us. I don't know if you have any experience or thought you want to share. We're about to sign off here. So nice to have you join us.
Well, thank you. I tend to not remember my dreams. But some dreams I do remember, and they tend to be the anxiety ones about work or school, just like the other guy described, the same exact kind of thing. My cousin, the same thing. But I have a dear friend who remembers her dreams very well and takes them, I'll say, and she enjoys trying to figure out what they mean. And what she does is she literally has a tablet right by her bedside. And I don't know if she sends an intention before she goes to bed, but when she has a dream, she does wake up and she'll write it down. And then, so she'll go over it the next day. And she values that ability or skill or that time of insight or trying to figure it out pretty strongly. And mine, I just not there. I don't remember them.
And maybe
Or
they're
rarely do I remember. Yeah.
They're like Diana. You're doing their work for you, and you don't really even need to remember them.
I like that. Yeah, take care of it, and I'll go my way in the morning, and I'll be fine.
Yeah, I guess for me, I use my phone and notes in phone, and so I'm always anything or even a fragment of a dream that I remember. So it goes a number of years back. All these dreams that I have in it. My goal is to make it so that eventually, like, there won't be any break in my consciousness. That's what I want. I want to be able, just like I can look back over my day and remember pretty much, what happened and what conversations I had and so on. I want to be able to do that all the way through my night. Wake up on the other end and know what happened. Get to know that real person and what they went through.
24/7 awareness, it sounds like.
That's my goal. I'm so far away from it.
There may be a reason for that.
That's good.
Well, let me tell you about the next 2 weeks. We have the same speaker for both of the next 2 weeks, since these topics seem to be very interrelated to him and to me. His name is Piyush Kumar. He's going to be speaking, I believe, on the Kashmiri Shaivite tradition of Hinduism, which is the tradition that he eventually returned to as his family's tradition, but he went a long way off of it while he was in Silicon Valley, and well, actually he's in Microsoft, I guess, up in Seattle, but he's returned to this. He's found it to be very helpful in terms of him understanding the world, this Kashmiri Shaivite tradition of Hinduism. And he's going to be speaking to us on consciousness of divine will, and that's next week, which will be September 21st, the autumn equinox. And then also on September 28th, the concept of Swadharma or Swadharma, or self-found duty. His name's Piyush Kumar, and if you look on our Gems from the Wisdom Traditions page, you can probably get a link to our YouTube channel, and so many of our different conversations are recorded there, and several of his are included in that. Oh, Sarah, you're there. Hi. Did you want to say something before we sign off?
At the very end, I love the topic. I always find dreams fascinating, of just revealing different things. I guess a thought came of a dream last night that was lucid, and at a certain point, I was looking into the phone, and it made me think about something in the waking life after. But I was looking into my phone, and I was finding that I could create anything in my phone, and so I was creating these paintings, but not with anything else other than my mind. And I kept swiping and creating a new painting, and I was thinking how these flat screens, how it's almost not a surprise the direction we're going in technology once we created images moving on a screen, that we're going to keep trying to explore this very easily manipulative reflection of our minds, basically. And we're going to keep trying to, it's almost an exploration into consciousness, this exploration into how to work these screens and how to create these projections. And because it's fast, it's much faster than creating a drawing or a photograph. Like our mind is pretty fast at creating projections. We're going to see how fast can we get this. I think it's all an exploration of consciousness at the end. But it was a fascinating thing that came from that dream. And it was easier. I was able to change in lucid dreaming. Sometimes I can change my setting, or at least I can decide, I want to go in the palace, usually some kind of cool building. But I could feel myself slipping out of the dream state into my bed, and I wanted to stay in this state. And so I found in the phone I could stay in it easier without having almost like it kept. So there's something about these screens and the way we're developing technology that is curious about our psyche.
So fascinating. Yeah, one of the things that Helena Blavatsky talks about as one becomes more conscious is this ability of our higher self to protect us. And if something is interfering in our sleep state, for example, maybe even something dangerous, that our higher self is able to provide that kind of protection, as well as guiding us, like redirecting that dream. Not going to go there, right? Or pull out of this dream, not going to go there. Or go further into it, because this is really good stuff. Well, thank you all. It was a joy to meet with all of you. And look
I
forward
want
to,
to say a thank you to you, Renee. We didn't do a thank you to you for this great talk. You really brought it all in, the different parts of it, and you led us through an exploration that is always very deep and exciting and gives us something to work with the rest of the week. So I really appreciate your talk and how you put it together and all the different facets. I always learn so much because I just see these different angles, and I just am very grateful for Gems and for you. So thank you.
thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you especially to David. He gave me some special help in preparing and some information about Jung and the whole structure of the talk. Thank you so much, David.
Thank you.
Aloha.
See you in the
talk.
Matrix.
Cliff and I say, we'll see you in Shishupti.
Sweet dreams.
Yeah, sweet dreams. So nice to have you.
Dreams.
Bye.
Bye.